Hey everyone, it's Marianne Pizzatola. Today is Wednesday, May 11th. It's almost 10:30 p.m. And I wanted to do a quick video because there's a lot of frustration tonight regarding the UFT election results. And while they're not completely in, it's evident that Michael Mulgrew was reelected for yet another term. And there's a lot of things bothering people about this. The way he held his campaign, that he didn't want to hold any public meetings with any of the opposition candidates, didn't want to have a debate. He canceled meetings. I mean, there's a lot of issues regarding this election. And you would think that a union leader in a democratic society would wanted to have an election that was a little bit more open and free and would truly hear his people what they wanted. But I think Michael Mulgrew has made a practice of telling people that he doesn't really care what they think. However, I know my retirees are not happy with today's results. And I want to tell you something. It's okay because he heard you. And I want to show you a few things. And these are preliminary stats that you see behind me. But 193,516 ballots were mailed out by the AAA. And that was to actives and retirees, because if you're a dues paying member of the UFT, you get like a half vote in the UFT officer elections, and that's the only time you're permitted to vote, to our understanding. 50,900 ballots were returned. That's 26%. That's absolutely horrible. But it also tells you something else out of that number. Only 26% of the people cared enough to return a ballot, which means they're probably disgusted by what's happening in their own union, and they don't see it changing, and they don't feel that their voice mattered. But you also, you retirees, you also showed them something that you do, that their voice did count. And if their voice counted when it mattered, like this week, maybe they would have had the change that they wanted. Maybe they wouldn't have dropped out of the process because they were upset or disgusted by it, or felt that they didn't have a voice. But see, this is a trend of feeling that you don't have a voice that surrounds Mr. Mulgrew in just about everything. And I'll get to that too. Well, about 64,000 retirees, these are our people, are within the union, and 27,500 ballots came back in this election, compared to 24,500 in 2019. So you look at my little writing, last election, he took 90% of those ballots. This year, he only took 71. You had a difference. You did make a difference. This is the frustrating part about this, is because your votes didn't count as full weighted votes. The Unity Party won by about 66% as of tonight. And as of 2014, that was 84%. Do you see the difference? United for Change took 34%, approximately 34% of the vote, which was more than any challenger since about 2004. You spoke out. Your vote mattered. Your voice mattered. I know many of you were so frustrated with your union, you were just going to cancel your union dues and walk away. And we said, no, use your vote, use your power, and you did. And I thank you for that, because you also made Mr. Mulgrew have to take pause and listen to you. But I also want to tell you that he doesn't really remind you that he doesn't really talk to you. And we know that. This was in a newspaper. This story came out because of a single payer issue. New York State Single Payer, which I'm sure you're hearing all over our Facebook page and over the internet and union emails and whatnot. This is the next segue, because this is huge. The UFT, their whole campaign around this election, there really wasn't even a campaign. They barely put out information. They didn't want a public spectacle. They didn't want public meetings. They held private meetings. They canceled meetings like the one that we were going to attend in Queens. Michael Mulgrew lied about Mulgrew Care, which is what we've dubbed it, Medicare Advantage plans. He lied about it, took credit for stopping it. I mean, all this crazy ridiculousness, and the teachers actually believed it because they didn't know better. But if they were actually paying attention to the retirees and what was happening, they would have known that Michael Mulgrew was actually lying about what he did and took credit for what the retirees did in our lawsuit against the city. He's not term limited either, which is also interesting. He can just keep on running and surrounding himself by people that tell him what he wants to hear rather than talking to him about issues that truly matter and why it does matter to them, like a single payer issue, and I'll get to that. This weighted vote thing tends to surround him, and it bothers me very much. The MLC, we keep saying, has a greatly weighted vote between the UFT and the DC 37, and that even though there's over 100 unions in the MLC, if DC 37 and the UFT want the vote to go one way, as long as they align, they get whatever they want. That's disturbing, because in a union, that should never be like that. We advocate to speak out, your voice matters, and yet what they're doing is stifling the vote all over the place just to get what they want. So the last time the vote came up in Albany for single payer, Michael Mulgrew came out against it on a vote by a message that was put out by the MLC. He was told, put this message out, and he did. What was the message? He was actually told to write an opposition memo against New York State single payer. Now, most of the unions, I will tell you, came out against it. There are a few unions that did come out to support it, but Michael Mulgrew and the MLC both came out with an opposition. So Michael was asked by a reporter, hey, did your union discuss this? How do your union members feel about this? Because NYSNA, the Nurses Association, they all supported it. They actually had conversations about it in their union. So they say, hey, Michael, did you talk to your union people about it? How do they feel about this? And he said, well, you know, when you're an elected rep from your union, if you had to, every time you were asked to vote or to give your opinion, stop and go back to your union, you'd never get any work done. That's president of the UFT, not going to his members, because if they did, maybe they would have known that there is actually a large segment of people that was supporting single payer. Or maybe he would have heard the retirees start talking about Mulgrew Care, the Medicare Advantage plan, and say, no, UFT president, we do not want this. And it's interesting, he doesn't want to be forced into a single payer plan by New York State, but he'll have no problem with forcing retirees into a Medicare Advantage plan. Do you not see the irony in that? Because what, he has a say in one, but we don't have a say in the other? You know, that's disturbing. So when I found out today that he came out in opposition of New York State single payer, but he was trying to jam this shit down our throats, I had to say something. Because that's a little two-faced, Mr. Mulgrew. And for the teachers who aren't following this, shame on you, and you need to wake up and start to follow what's going on, because this will affect you, and your union is selling you out just like every other union. You cannot sell out a retiree. We negotiated away our raises and benefits in order to keep our health care. You can't give that away. You also don't represent a retiree, and I don't care what you say under the New York State Taylor Law, a union can only represent an active employee with wages, hours, and work conditions. Retirees don't have that, and we already gave up our negotiation. It is your turn, and if the economy is different under your watch, then maybe you need to make some changes to what you pay, or what you do, or how you spend your money. Because I'll tell you now, the unions are spending money in ways that they probably shouldn't be. Maybe if they took better care of their welfare funds, if they didn't take money out of the stabilization fund, they would have money to do those things. So in that, I want to make sure that you all know that the UFT came out against New York State single payer, but he yet supported Medicare Advantage. And what does all of this lead up to? There's a moral of this story. And the moral is you don't screw retirees. You had a voice. You used it. You showed him to listen to you. You told him, we don't want this plan. We don't like what you're doing. We don't like how you treat us. And I honestly believe that if only 26% of the votes came back, people they disengaged. They don't like him or what he's doing, and they feel that there's nothing left that they could do to make any change or affect change or be part of the process, and they don't think they're heard. But you, the retiree, told them differently. And this is the same message that we hear from unions within the MLC. Well, why should I speak up? My voice won't matter. But it will matter. Because if all the unions who've been telling us that they disagree with what the MLC's been doing about this Medicare Advantage plan aligned together and formed a coalition and came out and spoke out about it, and then here's the other kick. No one can give me a constitution or bylaws of the MLC. No one. No one can explain to me where this weighted vote thing came from, why it's like that, and demand that it be changed. And maybe you should, and I'd be glad to help you. I know the retirees organization would love to help you do that. Because it's about time. It's about time that every single union had a vote, a single vote, not a weighted vote, not control of the vote, not manipulating the vote like a crazy old mafia. We are unions, we are labor, we are retirees from labor, and we should be standing together, not fighting each other, not pegging each other against our benefits. Because one day you will be sitting here, and tomorrow's children will be discarding you because you set the precedent today. Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. You're also opening up the door to OLR doing this back to you. Because if you were so willingly able to negotiate away for a benefit of a retiree that a retiree earned, they will do this to you too, because you'll have no leg to stand back on. And they will. You open the door. With that, I want to tell you thank you for listening. Please subscribe to our channel, follow our news. Please, retirees that are listening to this, do not be discouraged. We have a long way to go. Our case will hit in September term, and we still have arguments left on the table. We are going to educate the unions about Medicare and Medicare Advantage and the differences, about how these newly imposed copays that they put upon you are causing you financial strife, that you're not able to go to the doctor now because you can't afford the couple $100 a month copays that they've now imposed upon you. And if they got their way, they would have had an additional $200 a month premium per person. We're already seeing it, and the unions need to hear you. And to the unions, please come to our webinars. Please ask us to speak to your boards. Please ask us to help you understand why we're not liking what you've done. And final, our healthcare premiums do not come out of your stabilization fund. They do not. They do not. Retiree healthcare is not bankrupting the city of New York or the unions. If you're gonna lie, at least tell one that we can't prove that you're lying. Work with us, not against us. That's the message for today. And don't screw retirees. And for all you retirees, we're sending you a hug. Because you did great and you rallied around the message. It's not over. They'll listen. Eventually they will listen. Have a good night, everybody.